You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. I'm your host, Steven Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports and a former Ole Miss staff member, bringing you the inside scoop on all things Rebels. On today's Hands team, Bill Flowers and I are going to break down what we saw in the Ole Miss Rebels matchup against the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. We'll dive into some key moments from the game and explain why those moments are so crucial for the rest of the season. There's actually a decent little bit to unpack from it, and we're excited to share our insights with you. Also, don't forget to find a second listen on the network. Chris Gordy at Locked On SEC, Corey Burton at Locked On Vandy. Ooh, they laid an egg this weekend. They provide other perspectives around the SEC and Ole Miss even. Be sure and check them out. Today's episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Go to 5hourenergy.com and use promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. Now, Bill, Ole Miss played sloppy. They didn't exactly play well, and they would tell you that exact same thing. They still won the game by 34 points and covered every single line you could possibly cover. They would not be happy, and I think Jaxson Dart called that the ugliest 650-yard performance in the history of football.
Well, I think they came out and they played really well the first half, or at least first portion of the first half, and I think it's natural to play to your competition. You're in an environment that's lacklustering. If you look at the stadium in the beginning, it was completely packed. It was a really good environment. Ole Miss is looking to, hey, if we can keep them under 10, keep them 7, let's shut them out. That's the mentality. They had that buzz going. They were excited. And then at some point, it's sort of like you get this tiger that's got this little kitten, and it's like, what am I supposed to do with this? And you start just losing focus. And you could see that that's what happened. The environment started to go down. It was like, are we really doing this? Okay. And you're playing college football. You're playing against teams that have talent. And to me, that's what happened. This is why I would like to see this team to been, a much better opponent, which, interestingly enough, they've decided not to. They bought themselves out of the contract, I read, which is really interesting. I would like to know more about that. That to me, that's pretty bad on their part for multiple reasons, I would think. But so I'm not totally disappointed in how they played. I do think that the sign of maturity of playing well enough to where the coach has to take out the first team, like they've done the first 2 games. It should have been like that, but you saw a little bit of immaturity, and this is one thing that Nick Saban has always done is, pregame, do not let yourself lose focus. During the middle of a game, don't let yourself lose focus. I mean, there's a reason why he's one of the best coaches to ever coach any sport, because mentally he holds his players accountable.
Yeah, and honestly, you could see a lot. Lane Kiffin had used a lot of that Nick Saban mentality at the end of the game, because the team, you just won 40-6 game, and you're visibly upset. And you're talking about the things you did wrong, and you're talking about not playing up to the standard that you created. And that's kind of the mentality moving forward. Now, if this keeps happening over and over again, that just becomes word. But if that becomes something that they actually believe in, and against Georgia Southern, just kind of put the pedal to the metal and go on to Kentucky, I think that was a good thing.
Well, I'm going to say something that some people might already feel the same way I do. But I was embarrassed about our flops to manage the clock. I thought that was absolutely juvenile, and I was disappointed. I was like, you know what? You're playing Wake Forest. I'm not really sure what you're trying to do. You're only going to call attention. I mean, it's obvious what you're doing. It's to me, it was juvenile. You're playing them. If you're going to do it against a team when you're really needing to do it. Don't do it against Wake Forest, because to me, it was so obvious and egregious that it's going to bite you later on in the season when you do it. So I was a little frustrated with that. And I wasn't sure if they were just trying to do whatever they took to keep them from getting a touchdown, because no one scored a touchdown yet on us. But that was the one thing that I was disappointed with.
Here's my thing. I don't think that they were absolutely flopping what was going on. I think that we had a kinder, gentler spring practice and a very kinder, gentler fall. There was not a whole lot of hitting. So contact injuries, as you have talked about in the floor, you're getting kind of calloused up to the contact. So I think it was a little bit of, hey, this is the first time they've had to play full.
I mean, you saw who was it running off the field?
Who's limping off the field, and he was told to sit down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff that's sort of like, okay, come on. Now, again, it's sort of like with Warren Buffett when he said, I think me paying my taxes are ridiculous. Like, I should be paying a lot more, but why would I if I don't? So, I understand that, hey, Kiffin's going to make the most of the rules. I get it. My point is maybe do it in a game when you do need it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And a part of it for the stuff, and I do believe Kiffin does it, and I'm not saying he doesn't do it.
All the coaches do it.
Yeah, everybody does it because teams do it to Ole Miss. I think a lot of that is.
I'm just saying in general. I think the rule. I think it's kind of a, like you don't see it in the NFL.
Mm. Yeah, because you can't. You'll get fined.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a weird situation. Anyway, when we come back, we'll keep on talking about the Wake Forest Demon Deacons game, but I do want to let you know right now, grab a 5-Hour Energy. It's the brand hardworking people like you have been trusting for over 20 years to give them an alert, energized feeling to get them through a busy, hectic day. Use that energy shot to get through your favorite games, or if you stayed up late for that intense overtime game, take a 5-Hour Energy shot in the morning so you can get through your day. You always know where to find 5-Hour Energy shots, right? They're at the cash register at nearly every convenience, drug, or grocery store nationwide. Stock up on money-saving multi-packs to make sure you never run out of delicious, energizing 5-Hour Energy shots. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, that's the number 5, hourenergy.com, you can get some 5-Hour Energy product today. Use my promo code LOCKEDONCFB, all one word, to receive 20% off your order. That offer is only valid until September 30th. So that's about 2 weeks, basically, at this point, on one order, and it can't be used with other promotions. It's not good for subscriptions either. So go to 5hourenergy.com today. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day and you have to turn down the volume with all of that screaming and shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you each and every single day to bring you the biggest stories without all of that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, all streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And defensively, this is the first time since 1961, Bill, that Ole Miss has made it through the first 3 games of the season without allowing a touchdown. And as you know, playing ball at this school, anytime you go back to that era between like 1957 and 1963, that's pretty heady territory.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think being able to hold any team, to 3 games, to hold 12 points. I mean, I said last week, if they can hold to 7 points or less, you've got a really elite defense. And I that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that there's some elite defense. They have an elite defense. There is a little bit of, I think, the question mark, or not the question mark, the thing that makes people a little bit uncomfortable was how they lost their focus and became lazy. That's what's scaring people. That's what's making people feel a little bit uneasy about this win. Then next week you play Georgia Southern. Again, that could be the same situation. And and then all of a sudden you're going to play Kentucky. And you saw Kentucky give Georgia everything that they had plus more. And I think that the obviously the lack of focus won't be there, but I'm really not worried. If you look at the first and second quarter, you saw a team that I would judge that off my past experience of being on teams like that. The first and second quarter is what I would base my my thought process on.
One thing that's absolutely amazing, and we're 3 games into the season, but right now in the country, Ole Miss is second in the nation in offensive scoring at 56 points per game. And they're number 1 in the nation in defensive scoring, giving up 3 points a game. And that's a pretty nice spread. You figure Ole Miss and Tennessee, they have those crazy spreads right now to where they're scoring a ton of points. I think Ole Miss has scored 168 and given up 9. Tennessee's like 178 and 10 or 14 or something like that. These spreads are pretty ridiculous, but these SEC teams right now, 6 of the top 7 are SEC teams. So a whole lot of different scenarios could happen.
Yeah. I mean, you're about to see competition get ramped up. I mean, you look at Kentucky, you look at South Carolina that had to play LSU, Kentucky and Georgia. So you're about to see competition, which obviously you're not going to have those kind of point spreads when you're playing against SEC teams. So I think you'll start seeing realistically who's who here very soon.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting in this game as well. Jaxson Dart in his first road game, he had one little immature thing with his helmet, and he forced a pass in this game. But he proved that he is kind of the linchpin of this team, and when he goes, everybody else kind of follows. Ole Miss in the second quarter or into the third quarter, they were not struggled, not sputtered, but it just didn't look right. Jaxson Dart just decided he was going to run over 5 different linebackers, it looked like, to score a touchdown. And all of a sudden, the defense played a little bit better. Everything looked better after that.
Well, you're going to see, I think, again, it takes a little bit of it takes maturity to stay focused, to stay, locked on in what you're doing. Even play calling can become mundane, and just getting through the motions. So again, I think that's what happened. You saw a lot more aggressive play calling in the first, second quarter. You saw them hitting over the middle. You saw them doing things. You didn't see that really much in the second half.
Yeah, it's one of those situations to where I think Lane got bored. I think the coaches got bored. I think the players got a little bit bored because they could see what happened. Even though it was a 23-6 game or whatever it was at that point, there was no chance that Wake Forest was going to come back.
No, yeah.
So it should be pretty interesting. All right, we're going to take one more break, and when we come back, we're going to turn our attention towards Georgia Southern and Jaxson Dart versus Eli Manning records. We'll talk about that in just a second, but right now I do want to let everybody know. You've heard about FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book. I have a little something different for you, though, now. Through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get 3 weeks free. trial on NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon Alpha Market game. All you need is the Google account, a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. You can go there and get the Ole Miss Rebels at a 36-point favorite against Georgia Southern. That's a big line again. Or Ole Miss in their national championship odds have dropped down to plus 1,200. That's 12-1 odds to win the national title this year. Or Jaxson Dart is plus 600, 6-1 to win the Heisman Trophy. You can get all of those at FanDuel Sportsbook. Whatever your flavor is, you can get it today. So just visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook. All right, we're going to start with this, Bill, because obviously you played with Eli Manning, and going into this season, I thought that Jaxson Dart had a real good chance to get a lot of the records that Eli Manning had. And the way it's situated right now, I think if Jaxson Dart averages 290 yards for the rest of the regular season, by the Egg Bowl, he will pass Eli Manning. It's a situation that Jaxson Dart could end up throwing for north of 4,500 yards this year and completely obliterate all the records if Ole Miss keeps doing what they did in the first 3 games.
Yeah, I mean, you got to look at the offense that they're playing in, and it's who was this? There was a very similar. Well, who was it? It was a really good comparison. Forgot. But essentially, you have these records with guys that play in pro style offenses versus guys that are playing in these air raids, and the guys that are breaking these pro style records. You would think, that just shows you how good Eli was. Was that? Here you go. Here's a pro style offense. You're not throwing it every time. You have these really different offenses. So I think that Jaxson Dart I think he'll obliterate all of them. I mean, I think he's going to just walk away and crush them. So, I mean, and that's not to take anything away from Jaxson. I mean, this kid, I think he's got the best arm. I think he's got one of the best arms, one of the most as accurate as he could possibly be. I mean, he could be one of the best quarterbacks to ever walk out of Hemingway Stadium.
Yeah, and it's a situation where he has a legit chance, just like Eli, to be sitting in New York in December.
So I think he will be sitting in New York, and if he's not, then Ole Miss has had a bad season. I'm just telling you that. This is a quarterback-driven league. If your quarterback is not a front runner for a Heisman Trophy, you're not going to be playoff contingent or right there. I mean, look at all the teams right now that you're thinking that are possibly going to be in the playoff, and you're going to think they are close to having a Heisman quarterback. And so it's all up to him, and it's all going to be predicated with the middle of the field with the tight end. And that's what's going to determine how well they do that. And so if I'm what I would hope to see from Georgia Southern is for them to say, we're going to do everything we can to take away the middle of the field. We know we can't stop Trey Harris. We're going to have everything way back deep. You're not going to try to beat us deep. You have everything underneath, and we're going to take away the middle of the field. I hope that's what they do, because I think that's what you're going to see a lot of. You're going to see a lot of people just saying, we're going to take away the tight ends. We're going to take away the middle of the field, and really try to make Jaxson Dart beat us, because he's, we have such good tight ends, and taking the middle of the field, you get him on a hot streak, you watch. I mean, he hit 24 in a row. That's the last thing that you want.
And it's really interesting because you're absolutely right on that. But the problem that Georgia Southern specifically has is they gave up nearly 400 yards rushing to Boise State. And the running tack that they're going to see on Saturday is probably going to be like 2 times what Boise is. Now, they have a Heisman candidate playing at Boise. He's a good back, but the offensive line, the trench play is not going to be nearly the same.
Yeah. And again, this is the echoing of what I've been saying of you don't really know how good your run game is yet because you really haven't played a SEC caliber defensive line, linebackers. So obviously we will probably run through them like crap through a goose and throw. It's just going to be another practice game. That's all it's going to be. Yep. But at least it's at home.
Yeah, at least it's in Vaught Hemingway Stadium. Exciting news. Now everybody can become a Ole Miss Locked On Ole Miss Insider. It's the best and easiest way to stay updated on all things Ole Miss sports that's relevant. It's a texting program that sends you notifications on everything relevant without the hassle of message boards filled with trolls. Enjoy a 14-day free trial and experience the future of college sports coverage. We're adding new perks as we go, so do not miss out. The link is down in the description. For those of you watching on YouTube, thank you very much. Catch us on all of the podcast apps as well. We're there. Bill, what do you got going on this week, bud?
Nothing much. Just working and raising kids, just like I do every week.
I hear you. Well, enjoy it. It's a later game, the Georgia Southern game. So, 6:30 or something, 6:45. But it should be a nice little Saturday.
Yeah,
college football.
We might try to make it over for this game. I think I'm going to make it over for sure for the Kentucky game, but we might make it over there.
Okay, that's awesome. Anyway, Bill, take care, buddy, and we'll talk to you next week, bud.
All right. Hotty toddy.
Hotty toddy.